Hey, what's up? I wanted to kind of do a part two to this, round it out. This is, of course, H.P. Lovecraft's essay, Supernatural Horror and Literature, done in a book format by Alex Kurdijic. Uh, the notes on this, I had mentioned that before. One of the really good things about this, it's got a nice little format here. The notes are just amazing. I had mentioned before that the intro is good, and the whole essay is chock full of information, and it gives an insight into Lovecraft's own creative process. Right? Like I was talking about before, gives a whole chapter to one man. Okay, Edgar Allan Poe. I had mentioned Poe many times. We'll go to some of the most important insights into Lovecraft come from his descriptions of Poe. It sort of shows where Lovecraft got his style, or at least the origins of his style, from. Of course, he had mentioned Poe's influence. His early stuff was like his Poe, and then Lord Dunsany, who I've never read anything from yet. And he eventually found his own voice later. But I like early Lovecraft. I like all of the different eras of Lovecraft. The early stuff I like a lot. Anyway, he talks about Poe here. On the other hand, perceived the essential impersonality of the real artist, and knew that the function of creative fiction is merely to express and interpret events and sensations as they are, regardless of how they tend or what they prove, good or evil, attractive or repulsive, stimulating or depressing, with the author always acting as a vivid and detached chronicler rather than as a teacher, sympathizer, or vendor of opinion. Wow, that's how quaint that is, huh? We could use that today. And thus, he goes, Poe's specters thus acquired a convincing malignancy possessed by none of their predecessors, and established a new standard of realism in the annals of literary horror. Okay? I mentioned before Poe was the link to like the modern era, right? He's the father of the decadents and the symbolists, and I would argue naturalism and realism as well. Many of Poe's stories, there's many stories he did, that Lovecraft, he didn't like his satire stuff, which I think actually was really, really funny. It gives an insight into Poe, what Poe thought of things. He's one of our guys, let's say. I'll also briefly go over here. This book, I just finished reading this. This is Edgar Allan Poe's only novel, Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket. Okay? DFC Sons, read this as soon as you can. Okay? Amazing, very gruesome, dark adventure. I would say about a decade before Moby Dick came out, Herman Melville must have read this. Okay? It was criticized for being very gruesome and violent even back then when it came out in 1839. But I'm going to review this at one point. I'm going to review more books, than the comics. Things, the new ones anyway, are dying. So I'm going to do more literary reviews. And what's interesting about this novel, real quick, is that I have a copy. I have several copies of it. It's included in most of the collections. But I have a copy that I found in Pittsburgh area with I guess a sequel or alternate ending by Jules Verne that came out in 1897. So I'm going to review that at some point. But really amazing. Lots of at the end there's some interesting allegories there. Let's say I'm sure they'll be coming for Poe soon too. The next chapter here, I'm going to skip the British stuff because we sort of know that, pound for pound, the British, the English, let's say, are the masters of horror, both literary and cinematically. Of course, I'm partial to the early Germanic films, and of course the Italians on the Spanish on the continent, but the English are pretty much well represented in horror. The American is not as much, although the ones you do have are heavy hitters like Lovecraft. And the reason I brought up this chapter was it sort of gets across the concept of America, okay? Strange and forbidding nature of the scene into which the colonists, the settlers, the servants of their plantation, their planters, were plunged. The vast and gloomy virgin forests, in whose perpetual twilight all terrors might well lurk. The hordes of coppery Indians, whose strange saturnine visages and violent customs hinted strongly at traces of infernal origin. The free rein given Tinder the influence of Puritan theocracy to all manner of notions respecting man's relation to the stern and vengeful God of the Calvinists, and to the sulphurous adversary of that God, about to whom so much was thundered in the pulpits each Sunday. I keep saying that the America was a way for like Europeans who had been basically yoked to Christianity and nothing like their ancestors, meeting people more like their ancestors, Indians, very dangerous, 6 foot tall, badass warrior people, whose numbers though had been diminished by disease, into this world of the Congregationalists, a very gloomy, dark world. Like I keep saying, I'm very much like my grandfather, more of a secular Calvinist than my outlook. But this is what sets up the what I call the American archetypes, the real American archetypes. The modern American is just the alienated, atomized, junk culture exporter. But the real American archetypes are guys like Poe, guys like Lovecraft, guys like T.S. Eliot, guys who look to Europe and sort of kind of put a spin on things that was different being Americans, because it was such a cultural wasteland, and in turn influencing Europe greatly. Of course, the other real kind of American is the rural man, the rural person who escaped the coasts and the plantations, who lived with, fought with, and adopted the ways of those coppery Indians. I'll go real quick here because I want to add a little something to the end of this video. Of course, they have Hawthorne, Nathaniel Hawthorne. We all read The Scarlet Letter in school in America. I've seen some of his horror stuff in that Vincent Price Corman film, Twice Told Tales, where they try to do the post-cycle anthology thing with Hawthorne. I haven't read enough of his stuff, but he's another heavy dude. And of course, I just wanted to cover Ambrose Bierce briefly. All I'm going to tell you is you should check out his stuff. Very interesting man. Civil War vet, saw a lot of combat. He was at Shiloh, that accidental battle that was a real bloodbath. And he actually describes it. He wrote a lot of Civil War fiction stories and anecdotes. Okay, and he also wrote a lot of horror. Okay. He's kind of like the link between Poe and Lovecraft. What is it? Carcosa, The Stranger, Moxton's Master, The Haunted Valley, The Death of Halpin Frazier, A Baby Tramp, Middle Toe of the Right Foot. There's a lot of them. Some of them seem like ghost stories, but they're pretty gruesome. There's an atmosphere to them. The Damned Thing, that's another one. But there's also a modern thing to a lot of the horror as well. He really just check out Ambrose Bierce. I'm gonna cover him at some point. Very interesting man. No one knows how he died. He disappeared going into Mexico. So now, I guess I'm gonna pretty much wrap it up. At least in terms of I'm kind of done with this. Check it out. This is a good version of it. I'm going to briefly give my little thoughts on the whole Lovecraft country thing. Okay. I actually was going to try to watch it, but I thought the place I was staying at had HBO, but my hosts didn't have it because they couldn't afford it. And so I've watched previews of it. I'm familiar with the work it's based on. we knew what it was going to be. And I give a shout out to Arkham Reporter for kind of refusing to review it uh, for the obvious reasons that Lovecraft Country, the name, is just there to do what they're always trying to do. Basically, attack Lovecraft as a person, and by proxy, attack all of us. Okay, all of us pale faces. Let's be honest. But also to make money. If they called it something else, Lovecraft Country wouldn't have as much uh, cachet, let's say. Now, of course, this is such a scummy exploitative thing to do, where essentially these people attacking Lovecraft are both aesthetically and artistically failing utterly, okay, to approach anything that he did, okay, bringing in the resentment of their stories. A lot of these woke Lovecraft attack stories are funny because a lot of them end, from the ones I've read, they have happy endings. They have endings where the plucky, marginalized heroes defeat the powers, the evil old ones and Cthulhu, and of course the white men who are their enemies. Um, Totally missing the whole point of Lovecraft. But uh, the show is not Lovecraftian at all. So it's not even worthy to review. I agree with Arkham Reporter, and also straight up, it's anti-white. Okay, and when I say anti-white, I mean with bad consequences. Okay, to make every white person in there evil and sinister, dumb. Okay, you say it's not right. It's downright. It's dangerous, right? We all know this. The normalization of all these things over the last couple of years, which have been building up for decades, are now starting to yield fruit, and it's just the beginning. Okay, so to watch this, and of course you see the fawning over it, the fawning over the show, 97% positive ratings. It really is pathetic. Okay, and in the end, the character of what Lovecraft Country I could read, the actual main character is actually a decent character. He's a black American kid, war vet who loved science fiction. Okay, and of course, there's many references to John Carter. The unforgivable sin of fighting for the Confederacy is in it. Lovecraft, his issue with the cat, which he didn't name, by the way. But last I checked, in reality, when you really think about it, you don't have to like everybody. You really don't. I actually like. I actually am a person that sees people as individuals. Okay, I understand things work in groups, but I actually will be friends with any man or woman. Okay, who's respectful to me and will get it back. Okay, I'm not saying that to mitigate anything. I'm just saying it because it's true. All right. So, uh, Lovecraft Country is just, I'm gonna see, will it affect Lovecraft's legacy? Will they try to erase him and negate him? Well, I would argue that, you if they try, if they do, they're gonna be negating a lot of other things. So as long as you have his books, and I recommend everyone get hard copies of books, especially stuff that is controversial over the next decades, and you have those books, put them someplace. You'll be like the monks in Ireland. You'll be like people in the Library of Alexandria who were managed to escape with some tomes, or like the people that escaped with the books from the fall of Byzantium, Constantinople, and brought those books to Italy for the Renaissance. Uh, books, books are powerful, and they can't get rid of all of them. So anyway, that's all I had to say about that. Get this, any version of this, and let's see. Oh yeah, fuck Lovecraft Country. There you go. Later.